Jan is not here yet. Okay. All right, so we begin by reciting our opening prayers. So we'll start with the altruistic motivation on page 1. And if you don't mind, I'll lead this evening. So if you have the book, recite along with us the prayers in English and in Tibet. So we'll begin with the altruistic motivation. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Dagla dangwa je pe dra no pa je pe ge. Darpa dang dam she ken pe bar du jo par je pa tam she ki so je pe. Manam ka dam yam pe sem chen tam she de wa dang den. Dog now dang drel nur du la na me pa yang dag par zog pe shang ju bren po she to pa ja. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. De she du sang ma ge gi bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. Ma she bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. Du de ring ne song te ni ma sang ta sam gi bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. We take refuge in the kind root Lama and lineage Lamas. We take refuge in the deities and the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Transcends awa dangur pa je pe pal dan la ma dam pa nam la gab su chi o. Yidam kil gorgi la sog nam la gab su chi o. Sangye chom den de nam la kyab su chi o. Dam pe cho nam la kyab su chi o. Pa pe ge dun nam la kyab su chi o. Pa wo ka jo cho kyong song me song yeshe gi chang dang dem pa nam la kyab su chi o. Taking the Bodhisattva vow. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Shangshu Ningpo Chi Bar Sangye Namla Kapsu Chi Chodang Shangshub Sampayi Soklang De Shin Kapsu Chi Jitar Nonggi De Shegi Shangshub Tugni Ki Padang Shangshub Sampe La Pala De Dagrim Shen E Patar De Shin Dro La Pendandu Shangshub Sani Ki Gishin De Shin Du Ni La Pala Rimpa Shindu La Pajio. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye Chodang Sojo Ke Dun La, Sangye Chodang So Ki Cho Nam La, Shangshu Baidu Dagni Kyabsu Chi, Dagi Jin So Ki Pe So Nam Gi, Jola Penshir Sangye Jupa Shog. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadam yam pe sem chen tam she dewa dang dewe gurdang dembar jorchi. Dug now dang dunel gi gu dang dra wa jorchi. Dug now me pe dewa dang vidra wa jorchi. Ne ring jag dang ni dang dra wei tang namla ne pa jorchi. Okay, thank you very much. So tonight is the last night of this cycle of 8 classes. So we're going to talk about the 6 Paramitas tonight. Next week we will begin our new cycle. So we will start with maybe giving some more explanation on the prayers for everybody, and then we'll start with being able to review some of the things that we covered in this past cycle. And what we will be emphasizing, though, in the weeks to come, will be the 12 links of interdependent origination, which is one of the fundamental teachings that the Buddha Shakyamuni gave during his early teaching cycles. So in the Hinayana practices, the four thoughts, the Four Noble Truths, and the 12 links are the fundamental teachings that are given. So we spent a fair amount of time talking about the Four Noble Truths this last cycle. So this cycle we're going to talk more about the 12 links of interdependent origination. So it usually takes a couple of sessions to be able to cover everything. And there'll be time for discussion and so on as we move forward. If anybody else has anything that they would like to cover that we haven't talked about, let me know, and we'll see if we can fit it into our agenda for this next cycle. So we want to keep it basic. What we're trying to do is to keep our 8-week cycle within the fundamentals so that new people coming in have the benefit of understanding those fundamental practices and teachings and so on. So it's important for us to be able to continue to review that. So those of us who have heard it before, whether it was one time or many times, it gives us plenty of opportunity to refine what it is that we might understand about it. And so it's very useful whether we're a beginner or whether we're an advanced practitioner or someone who has been within the 101 cycles several times. So hope everybody's able to join us for that. There's a number of people who might be with us tonight who might join. We record everything and it is on YouTube. So we've got 2.5, almost 3 years worth of teachings that are on YouTube, and we can give you a link to get to that. And you can, once you subscribe to our channel, you can see all the links that we've done for all the different teachings and so on. So many people choose to use the YouTube as their way of being able to tune in with us. Monday night is not convenient for everybody, and sometimes they need to take a night off for one reason or another, so it all gives us an opportunity to be able to review the teachings or see them for the first time. Does anybody have any questions or comments right now before we get started with talking about the paramitas? Okay, so I sent out an email earlier or a WhatsApp with a link to this one-page text, which is an outline for what we're going to talk about tonight. If you had an opportunity to print it, that's great. If you didn't, I think I can screen share it here, so we can see that as we go along, and so you have a reminder. I'll leave it up for a little bit as we move along, and then come back, and so that we can look at each other and be inspired by all these hungry-looking faces. So, okay. Okay, so the 6 paramitas, the word paramita is a Sanskrit word that means perfections. So I hope you have note paper, maybe you want to make some notes and so on as you go along. So these 6 paramitas are the 6 perfections, and they are the 6 perfections of human beings who are on the path to attain liberation, to attain Buddhahood, to attain enlightenment. So liberation, enlightenment, Buddhahood, all these are synonyms for the same thing, and so it's this quality of our peace of mind, and it is transcendent of being a human being. Although we have this Buddha nature, we have this awakened nature within ourselves. So when we are able to uncover the blockages, remove the blockages of this true nature, we find that we have this Buddha nature, and we can live this Buddha nature. We can become a living Buddha as a human being. But it's very rare to be able to do that. very difficult to be able to do that. So we don't have any expectations that any of us can do that, but if we can, then that's a wonderful thing to be able to do. So we usually think of it that our Buddhahood is somewhere out in the future, and what we're doing now is we're approaching it through these teachings and through the purifications and so on that we go through. So these purifications are classified many different ways, and in this particular teaching, they're classified as these 6 perfections of being a human being. So these 6 perfections, I'll put up the screen share real quick. So these 6 paramitas, or these 6 perfections, are the 6 transcendent perfections. You can see this at the top of the page. So the first one is the perfection of generosity. The next one is the perfection of moral ethics. The next one is the perfection of patience. The fourth one is the perfection of effort or perseverance or diligence. The fifth one is the perfection of meditative concentration. And the sixth is the perfection of wisdom. So we're going to circle back and talk about each one of these things. Another way of talking about these is calling this action bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is 2 Sanskrit words. Bodhi means enlightenment. So B-O-D-H-I means enlightenment, and citta means the heart center or the heart or the mind-heart. So this is the mind-heart, the holy mind of enlightenment, bodhicitta. And all the enlightened beings have this bodhicitta. We have bodhicitta also, but it's blocked up, but it's confused. We may be able to act out with bodhicitta at different times of our life, but we really don't recognize exactly what it is that we're doing. But we do have all these qualities within ourselves. So part of our job is to bring this to our awareness, to our intellectual awareness of these spiritual properties, these spiritual qualities that we have within ourselves. So there is aspirational bodhicitta, where we aspire to be a wholly enlightened mind, to have the wholly enlightened mind. And we go through teachings and so on, and we do different things to be able to help us to stabilize those academics, the doctrine, we might say, the aspiration of having bodhicitta. And then there is the action, which is actualizing that bodhicitta, putting it to work, making it work. And in this case of the paramitas, it is putting it to work to the level of perfection. So this is the action bodhicitta. And it's said that these are the 3 mind trainings of this paramitas, of the 6 paramitas. We have to train our mind to be able to stabilize this. It doesn't come second nature to us. It may make, as we progress along this, we'll see that it makes a whole lot of sense. And we might say to ourselves, well, why didn't I think of that before? Or I knew that, why don't I practice it on a regular basis? So by bringing this to our attention and giving ourselves the opportunities to practice these paramitas, that's how we stabilize our journey along the path to enlightenment. So the 3 mind trainings are: the first is the training in superior morality. And the second mind training is the training in superior thought. And then the third mind training is training in superior wisdom awareness. Training in superior wisdom awareness. So we're going to break this down a little bit more and talk more about all of this. If you have questions while I'm talking, I don't mind you turning on your microphone and speaking up. I don't mind if you wait until afterwards, that's fine too. But if you have a question that's on your mind while I'm talking, just raise your hand or bring your microphone on so you can say something. If we've got this screen share on like it is now, I can't see everybody's hand. So that's why I say bring it up when you can. So focusing now on the training in superior morality. There's three parts to this. There's the part of generosity, there's the part of moral ethics, and there's the part of patience. So this goes back to the Six Paramitas: generosity, moral ethics, and patience. These are the first three here. So this generosity, let me check one thing here, please. So this generosity can be broken down into several different groups. So what this means is, in general, it means the offerings to accumulate wisdom and merit, and giving motivated, and our generosity, our sharing, motivated by compassion. So let's talk about this for a little bit, because this is fundamental, and this is probably the biggest part of our conversation tonight is about this generosity. How do we exercise generosity of the enlightened mind? So there's several ways. One is to come to the practices and take in the teachings, to be part of the Sangha. The Sangha is the community of people who are following the Dharma teachings and so on. So the generosity of your time, the generosity of your attention, your generosity to share with other beings your experience and so on is a fundamental generosity, something that helps us to be able to share, to recognize what we have. And we do that just by simply attending and paying attention and so on. But then we can also, once we're now part of this Sangha, once we're part of this community, then we can begin to help each other and do things around the Dharma Center, to be able to help sponsor other people, to be able to help the lamas, the teachers, the Tibetan teachers and so on, to be able to facilitate the Dharma teachings. So this level of generosity is very good. It is something that comes very simple to us, and it doesn't necessarily require a lot of inner thought or anything like that. It's just being present and helping out doing things and so on around the center. Sometimes, taking out the trash. Sometimes, cleaning up in the kitchen. Sometimes, sweeping the place. Sometimes help, setting things up when we have different practices and we have different teachings, and coming a little bit early and helping to prepare the shrine room and so on. All these things are generosity of our times and our talents, and maybe we have some special talents that can help be able to facilitate the teachings. So these are things that we can do around the center. We can help the lamas in particular, not just by paying attention, but by asking them questions, by engaging with them in what it is that they are offering us. They are giving us great compassion. They are showing us great compassion because they have learned these things many times over and so on, and they have achieved a high level of realization and recognition and so on, and now they are spending their entire lives sharing this with other people. So to help them, to show them interest and so on, is a great generosity on our part that they take in, and it kind of energizes them, because they are human beings after all, and they appreciate that connection that they're getting from their students and so on. So by being able to do that is very, very helpful. Another thing that's very helpful is to be able to share whatever good fortune you may have in the way of finances, being able to support the contributions, the donations that we use in the center. These centers are totally by donation. And all the people that are working in the Dharma Center are all volunteers. Nobody gets paid. The Lama, the resident Lama, the spiritual director, he does receive a modest stipend. And he does receive the benefit of having medical insurance that comes through the center and so on. But other than that, he's totally dependent upon everyone's contributions to them, to the lamas, for the teachings that they do and the practices they do and the meetings that they have and so on like that. So being able to help the lama, being able to help the Dharma Center itself is one of these points of generosity. The gas and electric still has to be paid. We still have a loan on the building that we got 7 years ago. We're still paying that off. Things still need to be purchased. Things need to be repaired around this center. Where our main refrigerator is on the fritz, and it looks like we're going to have to replace that. So there's always something that needs to be done. And these past 2 years or 2.5 years, whatever, because of COVID, we didn't have any functions at the center at all. So we were totally dependent upon people dropping by and putting, money into the donation boxes or sending in a check or going online or something like that. And you can imagine that many of those donations really fell off, and it's not just our Dharma Center, but all the different churches, anything that was a donation supported kind of a facility really suffered these past couple of years and so on. So by showing your generosity through finances and so on is a very important but a practical thing in which we can help the Dharma Center. Having resources like books, having resources like food, coming in and cooking, providing books, things like this are all very helpful. We are fortunate enough that we have some very good printing equipment at our center, and we print our own books, and we sometimes print books for other centers who with a modest cost to them, we provide the service to them. So sometimes we need to be able to assemble 50 or 80 books in a short period of time. So being able to come down and learn how to do that and help us to do that, making an assembly line, is a very good practical thing that we've had some great help with. Some of the other Sangha members, we couldn't have done a lot of things without their help and so on. So these are ways in which we can help. If people can cook, that's another thing. They can provide food. That's still another thing. So these are all practical things that we need to be able to support the Sangha with, and to be able to support the Lamas with, the facilities with. Of all these things, the greatest thing that we can do is practice. This is for the lamas to be able to dedicate your practice to them, to be able to tell them that I received your teaching, I've been practicing how to do these practices and so on, and I'm making dedications for all sentient beings to attain enlightenment, but I'm dedicating it to you, the teacher. And this is the greatest generosity that you can show the teacher. Like I said before, they are mendicant monks. They have nothing except really the clothes that they have and whatever it is that people donate to them and so on. But when you tell them that you are dedicating your practices for them as a result of their teachings, This is the same as they dedicate their teachings and their practices to their teachers. And this is what sustains and keeps the lineage going on for generation after generation after generation after generation, is this dedication of practices. So it's a very important thing. And I've been with lamas who, when we talk to them and they hear stories about people, how they've dedicated their practices, their time, and so on, to doing these practices, tears well up in their eyes, because this is what they have done. And it means more to them than all the money. It means more to them than any of the possessions. It means more to them than all the other mundane activities we can do around the center. The most important thing is to be able to do Dharma practice and to develop your Dharma practice. So take that to heart, and we remind everybody about this from time to time. And after a while, it becomes second nature to you. It's what you want to do. You realize that there is wisdom, and then there is actualizing that wisdom. And actualizing that wisdom is the compassion that we are showing for other beings. So the lamas have attained great wisdom, and they are actualizing that wisdom through their compassion to teach this. And we're receiving it. And then we have students too. We have brothers and sisters in the Sangha, and we're helping them and so on. So it's an integral part of being in the Sangha. So as we do this, we use the word merit quite a bit. So that as we're doing these things, whether it's doing work in the Dharma Center, whether it's working with books or cooking or whatever, if we're giving money, giving material things to the center, whatever it is, if we're doing practice and we're dedicating to practice, what we are accumulating is a merit, a merit. And this merit isn't something that somebody's keeping a scoreboard or something like that, but it's within yourself. And there's an invisibility of spirituality. It's not something that you can weigh. It's not something you can hold in your hand. It's not something you can measure by any means or anything like that. But it is something that is very, very real. And the more that we begin to recognize our spirituality and develop our heart center, not just the fleshy part of our heart, but our heart center, that here is where our love is. Here is where our compassion is. And as we begin to develop that and make that more stable, it accumulates this merit. This merit comes. And this merit is something that can help you in many different ways and help many other people in different ways. So we don't do this for the sake of the merit itself. We do this for the sake of being able to help other beings. But the merit comes as a result of that. So our motivation is not the merit. Our motivation is the compassion. The merit accumulates from that compassion, from that sharing, from that generosity, and so on. So a good example of this is, let's say you're attracted to certain things, material things. Maybe it's cars, maybe it's clothing, maybe it's sexual partners, maybe it's having money in the bank, many different things that we can be attracted to and so on. And as we develop our Dharma practices, and as we are getting more and more involved, and we get distracted, we get interrupted by these thoughts of, oh, that's a really good looking car. I'd like to have a car like that. Oh, that's really nice clothing. I'd like to have clothing like that. Or that's a nice looking person. I'd really like to get to know that person, or I'd like to have that money in the bank, So these kinds of things become distractions for us that aren't just temporary distractions. They become very, very time-consuming. and energy consuming, where we can lose track of what it is that we're doing with our Dharma practice for long periods of time because we were distracted with these things and so on. So as we develop our practice, and as we get into the routine of doing these practices and studying and coming to these groups and so on, we begin to build up this merit. And then what happens is, after some period of time and some stability in our lives, there goes a new car down the road and you don't even pay attention to it. Or there's somebody who walks by who's very attractive and you didn't even notice them. And you begin to recognize this, all of a sudden it comes, oh wow, that person, I would have stopped what I was doing and go over and introduce myself to that person. Or I would have gone over and looked at that car and I would have started looking things up on Google and find out more about that car or something like that. And so we find that the merit kind of protects us from doing that. Or sometimes we need to be able to accomplish something and there's a lot of distraction going on around us, and the merit is taking care of that distraction so that we don't even see it. We don't even recognize it. So the merit kind of works in the background. It's within ourselves. It's not something that's exterior to ourselves. The merit is something that we give to ourselves. It's like a gift. It's a gift of our attention. So when it says here that we accumulate wisdom and merit, the merit is what is coming along with this. So it's kind of like money in the bank in the regard that when we need it, it's there. Sometimes, we have to do something. We want to go on a retreat. And a retreat means we're going to go away for, let's say, a weekend, or we're going to go away for a week or something like that. And, there's expenses that are involved. And you say to yourself, well, how am I going to be able to afford that? How am I going to be able to afford the time to be able to do that? And then when you got the merit to be able to do something, all of a sudden, things start happening around you. You find, well, here's $500 I didn't expect to have. Well, I can put it in the bank, but, I want to go to this retreat. Maybe I can use it towards the expenses of going to that retreat. Or maybe my schedule is all blocked up and, I can't get away. I don't have time and everything. And then all of a sudden you get a phone call and says, we got to cancel that event we were going to have. And now all of a sudden you've got 3 or 4 or 5 days that you didn't think you had. This is like the merit working. And I say this from personal experience. So it's really, I don't like the word magic. It's not magic, but it is something that is really very special. And you begin to see it happening. And it's a wonderful thing. And to know that you're seeing spirituality that is connected with physicality and with intellectual stuff. You see that they're not separate things. It's all interconnected. And that's an amazing thing. That is something that we really, really don't expect in the beginning, but we find that that's what happens, that we are physical beings, we are intellectual beings, and we are spiritual beings. And when our physicality is not working right, we can't think properly and we can't practice spiritually practically, very well. When our intellect is confused or something, it affects our body. We start getting psychosomatic illnesses. We get sloppy. We have accidents and so on like that. When our spirituality is there, is not there, then we're just left to the devices of our physicality and our intellectualism. But when our spirituality is strong and powerful, we have wisdom enough to say, if I don't take care of my physical body, I can't think right and I can't do spiritual practice right. So I got to take care of my body. And then if my body is strong, now I have more energy to be able to spend thinking about things. And if I think properly about things, I'm making time for spirituality and so on. So we see how things are interconnected with each other. We talk a lot more about this as the Dharma becomes medicine. It is medicine for us to be able to heal our illnesses of confusion. And that confusion takes many different forms and so on. And so we will look at that again. So this motivation by compassion, that we want to be able to help other beings. And we're finding skillful ways in which to do that. So that's part of what these teachings are about, to teach us how to help ourselves first. We have to stabilize ourselves before we can really reach out and begin to help other people. So we can say that we're having compassion for ourselves. But then once we have a modicum of stability, now we can begin to kind of reach out and be able to help other beings. But we shouldn't go too far out on a limb. We shouldn't go any further than we're prepared for. So we have to be careful about that. So we always want to help people, but then sometimes we kind of take on more than we can handle, and we start creating a bad feedback for ourselves, and we create stress and deity pride, spiritual pride on our own that causes more harm than it's actually helping and so on. So we have to be careful of that. So this is all part of the Dharma teachings that we go through. But at this point, we're talking about that we are motivated by helping ourselves and by helping other people. So this is generally the discussion on generosity, how we help ourselves, how we help other beings, how we help the Sangha, the community of the Sangha, and so on like that. So this is a superior morality. So we're saying that this is of the body. We're saying that this morality is of the body. So by the body of the group, the body of ourselves, the body of others, and so on, the body of the facility, these physical things. So then we come to the paramita, the perfection of moral ethics. And this moral ethics really is described as discipline. And we find that so many of us are not disciplined more than we'd like to be disciplined more than we are. And we come to realize that. And we come to realize that the things that that we think that we're not able to do is because we're not willing to take on the responsibility of disciplining ourselves. Maybe it's time management. To say, oh, I can't practice. My God, I got to go to work. I got to deal with my family. I got to do these things. I got to go shopping. I got to do all these things and so on. And you don't have a half an hour, to practice once a day, or you don't have, why not? Well, I just don't have time. I'm too busy, and well, how much time do you sit around, just thinking about things or doing nothing or playing games with your phone or, doing meaningless emails and stuff like that, looking through Google or whatever it is that we do and so on like that. And so discipline can be saying, okay, I need to find a way to carve out 30 minutes out of my schedule, my routine every day, to be able to do my practice, to be able to read, to be able to study, to be able to do chanting, to do whatever my practice is at that particular time, and to discipline myself to do it. So many people will say, okay, I got to be at work at 9 o'clock, but I can, before I leave the house, I can sit down for 15 minutes at 7:15, and I can do 15 minutes worth of practice. So I'll discipline myself to do that. And then you start doing that and you find, oh, well, this is really enjoyable. I'm really finding that this is working for me, and I keep running over. My 15 minutes now becomes 20 minutes. And then before long, you find out that you're spending 30 minutes doing these things. And you say, oh, I'd really like to do these other practices that I've read about, I've heard about. I'd like to be able to do them, but I don't have enough time. 30 minutes doesn't do it. And you say, you know what? I'm going to get up another half hour early. So now I can have a full hour to be able to do my practice. So it's disciplining yourself to be able to do time management in order to practice like that. The discipline also is to, regulate your behavior. The things that you waste time on, and the things that maybe you're doing unwholesome things. You're spending time doing unwholesome things. So examining what those things are, evaluating what those things are, and maybe changing those things that you do. Maybe letting go of some things and doing some other things with the energy and the time that you have to spare now, because you've been able to marginalize those other things that weren't being very useful for yourself. So as we do this, we find that we become more peaceful. We become more in control of ourselves. So I've been interviewed many times by students at the junior high school and the high school and the colleges around Dharma Surya in Fairfax. And one of the questions that they always ask is, well, how has the Dharma changed you? How has Buddhism changed you? And my answer has always been that it's given me the sense of my responsibility, that I'm responsible for my happiness, and I'm also responsible for my sorrow, for my difficulties, for my suffering, for my confusion. And when I recognize that responsibility, now I take charge of myself. We say that we gave ourselves this life, and we kind of created this architecture of our life, what we want our life to be. But then as we're moving through the life, we become the engineer of our life, because it always needs tweaking. We have to call up the engineer, hey, the heat isn't working right. Or you say, oh, this isn't working right in my job. I have to tweak my behavior in my job or my relationships or something like that. I have to kind of tweak the architecture a little bit so it works smoothly for myself. So this, again, is discipline. This is being able to take responsibility. And if calmness is one of your criteria for what you're trying to achieve, then you need to find what it is that's upsetting you and be able to examine it, understand the causes and the conditions of it, and at some point, you just really just cut it off. You can rationalize it away, but ultimately, like I said, you just say, I'm going to stop doing this. And then all of a sudden you find you have more time, you have more energy, you have more calmness, and so on in your life. So it's taking responsibility for these things. So we say that we are accumulating wisdom and compassion. That we're accumulating this. So as we accumulate this, we're bringing on that merit that I talked about before, but there's a facility that has to happen to allow this accumulation to come. So we need to be able to have the discipline for that. So in your home, if you're going to develop a regular practice, you need a good place to practice, a place where you're not going to be disturbed by the telephone, where you're not going to be disturbed by television, where you're not going to be disturbed by other family members, all these different things. And also, you're maybe not going to disturb them, because, you get into these practices, you get into the chanting and things like that, and maybe they don't want to hear that. It becomes disturbing. So you find a place in your home where you can carve out a corner or whatever, and maybe you put up a few things that are mindfulnesses of your practice. Maybe it's a picture, or it's a statue of the Buddha or something like that, or your teacher, or maybe it's lighting a candle and lighting some incense. Some of these spiritual things, these devices, these tools that we use to help us to create and stabilize the mindfulness of our spirituality. So this is like creating the facility for being able to accumulate the wisdom and the merit, or the wisdom and the compassion. So this is an integral part of what we're doing, and again, it requires discipline to do this, and some forethought, and maybe some compromise with your family, the other people that you share your home with, and so on. And then also on the weekends, maybe it's, coming to the center, coming to the Dharma Center, because that's how we all start, by coming to the Dharma Center. And that gives us the support, the strength of what it is to do this in a proper environment. And then we learn some things, we see some things that are very helpful to us, and we take those things and we bring them back to our home where we want to do our practice. We come to the center maybe, a few hours a weekend. Maybe it's all day Saturday, all day Sunday on occasion, whatever. But it's only a few hours. When we come home, here's a place that we're all the time, or not all the time, but we're we start our day there, we end our day there. So it makes sense that this is where we ought to have a place that is conducive to being able to do our practice and so on, so we can develop this accumulation of wisdom and compassion and so on. So these are moral ethics. These are examples of moral ethics. This is the discipline. And as we get better and better with this, we perfect this. We find a way that it grows with us, and we find that we become inseparable from these devices, at least for a period of time. We depend upon these. They're our support. Eventually we become independent of these things. We don't need these things, because we find that all this is within ourselves, and our mindfulness is so strong, so stable, and so powerful, we can be in the middle of the beltway and be doing our practices and not be disturbed or interrupted in any way. And people can be parading by us and we're not paying attention. That's the perfection level. But we're working up to that. Anybody got any questions or comments? Okay. So then we come to patience. Now we have to have patience for everything that we're doing, because our mind, we talk about our monkey mind. Our monkey mind is just jumping around. If I said to you, all right, we're going to do a meditation right now, please everybody sit in the meditation position, close your eyes, and don't let any thoughts come into your mind, into your head. It's impossible. You might be able to hold it for 5 or 10 seconds, but then all of a sudden the monkey mind kicks in and starts jumping around thinking about this thing and the other thing. And before you know it, you've lost whatever concentration you had on even what it was that you were going to do, a meditation. You forget altogether because your eyes are closed. You don't hear anything, and you forget what it was you were doing. So we need to be able to have patience for ourselves, for our progress along the pathway. We have to have patience for our ignorance, what it is that we don't know. We have to say to ourselves, oh, I'm learning some things. There's many more questions that I have about this. But then my teacher is telling me, oh, well, we're not ready for that yet. We got to establish some foundation things before we can get to that part there. So I have to have patience. Or maybe I'm studying and I'm reading and 4 or 5 different words came up that I don't have time to go and research right now. So I have to give myself patience to be able to say, oh, I'm going to look at those things a little bit next time when I have some more time. So to have patience to wait for these things to come. and not feel as though, oh, I'm obsessive. I got to call somebody right now, and I gotta break my concentration to find out what this word means, or what thoughts have come up into my mind, or something like that. So we have to have patience for our ego. Our ego is a vital part of who we are as human beings. And the ego is really trying to control us. And if we let the ego control us, we're going to go down many paths that are going to take us away from spirituality. Because spirituality, in its essence, is selflessness, not selfishness. Ego is completely selfish, is about you. It can use spirituality as part of its tool, ego. Ego can say, oh, I'm the best meditator. Oh, I'm the best practitioner. Oh, I'm the best teacher, whatever. And then we get carried on with that ego now leading us around like a hook in our nose and so on. But we have to be able to recognize our ego. We have to be able to compartmentalize our ego. And we have to be able to give our ego a job to do. We can't annihilate the ego, but we find that we can use it and not let it use us. And sometimes the ego will get the better part of ourselves, kind of get ahead of ourselves and so on. And we have to say, oh, there it is again. I have to have patience for myself, and I got to, put the ego back in its place. And then we have afflictions. Well, we have physical afflictions, we know about them, but we have mental afflictions. We have emotional afflictions. And these are our fears, these are our hatreds, these are our jealousies, these are our delusions. So we identify these very clearly. We talk a lot about this, particularly in the early parts of our one-on-one teachings. So these afflictions of the emotions have to be recognized and have to be controlled. And we have to have patience for ourselves, because just saying that we're going to do it doesn't do it. It takes work. It takes time. It takes effort to be able to control, to subdue those afflictions and so on. So like I said before, the Dharma, the Buddha Dharma teachings are like medicine for those afflictions. To be able to rest those afflictions and to be able to cut off our obsessions with them, our attachments to them, because our identity is wrapped up in many of those afflictions, many of those false identities that we create for ourselves. So we create this selfishness out of that. So, and then the interruptions that I've already talked about, there's so many different interruptions, there's so many different reasons and so on, and to be able to begin to control those things. And we find that we have much more time, we have much more energy than we think we do, because we waste so much of it. But as we begin to develop our practice and develop the perfection of power, perfection of patience, we begin to see how much more time we do have and how we can deal with those interruptions. And so much of it, can we talk about this later? We don't need to talk about this now. I'm doing my practice right now, or I'm studying right now. We can talk about this later instead of letting these things come up. So we learn to recognize the interruptions and take responsibility for them. Sometimes we need to pay attention to an interruption. Maybe the buzzer's going off from the alarm down in the basement that's saying, our UPS has gone down, or the water sensor has gone off, or something like that. There are some things that need attention. Maybe it's, our mother or our children, or someone calls and there's something going on. We've got to stop. We've got to take care of this right now. So we take responsibility for that, and we got to put our practice on hold for a little bit. But it's only on hold. We know we're going to get back to it. when the emergency has been taken care of. So there's a great deal of common sense that has to be developed. And saying that, one of the things that we are really trying to work on, and this is something you can write at the top of your page, is critical thinking. And critical thinking with the dynamic of spirituality. And seeing that we have the physical body, we have the intellectual body, we also have the spiritual body, and we have to start thinking critically about how all those are interconnected with each other. So the more that we understand about the Dharma, we learn more about how that works. And we have to take responsibility for that, and we have to have patience to allow that all to develop and so on, and not get upset with ourselves if we're not doing things the way we think we'd like to be doing them in 5 years from now. We want to do them now. We got to give ourselves time. And then there's obstacles, things that stand in the way, that maybe not, literally physical obstacles, but they're emotional obstacles, they're intellectual obstacles that are standing in our way. Oh, I can't do that. I can't learn that. I can't read this book. This book is 2 inches thick. I can't read that book. But you find that, all right, let me start slow. Let me read the book that's a 1/2 inch thick. Let me get through that and get confidence from doing that. And then I'll go to the book that's 3/4 of an inch thick, and I'll read that and get confidence with that. And then before you know it, over time, you find that the obstacles of being able to focus and pay attention, be absorbed in what it is that you're reading and studying, comes very comfortably to you by getting rid of your obstacles and so on. Sometimes there's obstacles at work. Sometimes there's obstacles in the family. There's conflicts that come through the personalities and so on. And we have to have skillful ways in being able to work that out. Sometimes we have to have a sit-down conversation and say, well, I want to be able to do this. You have seemed like when I do this, you get upset. How can I do this and have you not get upset? And can we work this out and talk about why it's important to me and what's important to the other person who's getting upset when I do this, and find out ways to be able to come together and be able to compromise on things. So obstacles like water, water that's running down a river, and you go into the river and you find these rocks that are there that are river rocks. They're very smooth and everything. But at one time, that rock was all kinds of jagged edges and like that. But by being in the water, constantly running, those jagged edges became smoothed out. So that's an example of how we can overcome obstacles. Slowly, but steadily, we're working out the rough edges. So we have to do that. And then we find what we have is a nice balance in our lives. We feel better. We think better. People like to be with us better. And we like to be with ourselves better. And we find that we can be happy just by being with ourselves. We don't need the attention of other people like we used to think that we needed. Some people just love to argue. Some people just love to have conflict in their lives. And their ego depends on that. But when we're able to control that, we find that there's this peacefulness that we really enjoy more than anything else, more than we thought we would enjoy it. So working out obstacles is part of patience. So we talk about this dualistic, illusory appearance. So this dualistic, illusory appearance. We are dualistic beings. We don't look at things in their essence. We look at things as what they mean to me and what stands in the way of that. We look at it's good, it's bad, it's up, it's down, it's black, it's white. It's got all these dualisms. So we need to be able to have a way to be able to see what the essence of this dualistic nature is, what it is to be a human being and have this dualistic nature. So we say that this dualism is really illusory. This is what human beings do. If we go outside and look at nature, we see all these different dynamic things that are happening. We see the sky is blue. We see the sky is cloudy. We see the sun is out. We see the sun is blocked up by the clouds. We see the rain. We see the sunshine. We see all these things and so on. But and we start making judgments about all of it and everything, and it conditions what we're going to do. Now, your pets, your dogs and your cats and other animals that are around you and so on, do you think that they're going out and they're seeing these things and thinking about these things? Of course not. They don't recognize nature in the same way that human beings recognize it because we're placing all these value judgments on all these things that we see. So all these things are illusory in their nature and all this dualism because in their essence it's all the same. What that means is, can we get down to the atomic level? Can we get down to the energy level? Can we get down to the E equals MC squared? Can we get down to what it is to be a physical being, an intellectual being, a spiritual being, and be able to recognize that as all being this illusion? This stuff that we created for ourselves. I said that we were the architect of our lives. We have this energy, we have this physical body, and then we kind of mold it into what we think we want it to be. But what's the essence of that? And is that not the same as it is with each of us? Is that not the same that is with the trees outside? Is not that the same as the air that is between us that's invisible to us, but yet it's full of all this activity that we don't see, that's moving about and so on. So being able to recognize what all these illusions are that we are in the midst of. And
Lance,
yes, sir.
uh, I've been listening carefully, I believe, I hope, to everything you've said, and and I agree with it. But there's a voice inside of me that keeps saying, however, how how do you make this work when every day each of us uh, has to go out and live in an empirical world, a world of things, a world of people and those who have jobs, a world where
Well, of course. And
things matter and things are quantified and things are counted.
well, Gary,
And,
through patience.
well,
We're gonna. That's what we're here to do. And the perfection of the patience, the perfection of the things that we're talking about tonight, is how we do that. So right now, we may not have the benefit of understanding that yet, but it's coming.
well, yes, and I believe that.
Okay.
I believe that,
So
but
what? So what's the problem?
I also see people having to go out and respond to uh, and not only survive but thrive in a context of other values where things matter, where you are graded, where uh, uh, it is a dualistic world that you have to survive in, while at the same time rejecting dualism as a mindset for yourself.
So what's our goal? What is the goal? What is the stated goal that we talk about over and over again?
Well, we want the world not to be that way. There's no
Well,
way to
the
simplify
word
it.
I'm looking for is liberation. We want freedom.
Well, oh,
We
yes,
want freedom. And as human beings, we ain't going to get much of it.
true.
Yeah, I kind of like one in the same thing with the dualism and stuff like that in a kind of way, because in my walk somehow, in especially here, I have I kind of like embrace, I don't know what it is. I have no problem being bad, I have no problem being good, but at the same time I'm kind of like in the middle. You know what I mean? And always trying to do the right thing all the time. But I'm somewhere, I'm trying to, like, being in this, being in the world is kind of hard for, I don't know what it is, what I'm trying, what I try, but I'm just trying to, I'm kind of like in this, in the middle somehow, which is between the two. And I'm just trying to figure things out. And the more that
Well,
I'm
to know that you have the question is a healthy thing.
Mhm.
But also to have faith that there is a solution to this. It may not be the solution that you're expecting, but it really is that you are going to be able to endure this in ways that you didn't think possible right now. But in the future, you'll be able to endure this dualism. You'll be able to endure this confusion because of the things that you learn and the things that you begin to practice because of your spirituality. If we took away the spirituality, you'd be absolutely right. You'd be tormented by your physical and your intellectual domination in your life. But it's the spirituality that is connected with this physical and the intellectual that puts it into a better perspective, that gives you the place to be able to liberate yourself from those confusions, if only it's for 30 minutes, if only it's for an hour, if only it's for 5 minutes. And then you find that that begins to grow and it begins to become more important. You know, Roger, you're a young man. You got a lot of years to come. Gary, you and I are about the same age and so on. But what we find out is that when you're a young person, you got so many pressures on you, so many things going on, it's really hard to be spiritual. When we get to be our age, seniors, let's be kind, when we get to become seniors, now we have more leisure and so on. And now it's a matter of being able to say, okay, now I have to really seize this opportunity of these last years that I have. Maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 20 years, maybe it's 25 years, but it's not going to be too much more than that in our case. So
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those things also when I got back from the war. It's kind of like I don't know, kind of like walking in hell or something like that when you got back and trying to find a lot of things and all those things that you go through in life.
and we're going to look at all that. We're going to get naked in
Yeah,
that in that regard.
that's what I so when I started meditating and starting to work, because I tried everything that you could possibly trying to do. That the moment that I started closing my eyes, that's when I started becoming aware
Yeah.
and have this many things that's going on with me. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's like a tug of pull, ups and downs and all these other things that's going on. And until I'm I don't know what journey I'm in or whatever that it is
I
that
understand, but that's what we're here to do.
Mhm.
And first, Buddhism 101 is designed to give us all a vocabulary that we can discuss all this.
Mhm.
And then once we get the vocabulary, once we get some basic rules established in which we can move around in, and then we begin to practice that, one is the intellectual knowledge of these things, and then the second is the practice. If we don't practice, having all this knowledge over here doesn't mean anything.
Mhm.
We got to practice it. So that's what we're trying to do is have both of these. Monday nights we're talking about the intellectualization of this, and on Saturdays we're trying to say, okay, here's how we develop a practice. And in both cases, we got to have patience to allow this to work. So I hear both of what you're saying. You're both saying basically the same thing, and I think we're all in the same place. And sometimes, we get exasperated. Things aren't moving quick enough for us all. We get setbacks, and it's very frustrating. But it's our spirituality that is going to see us through this. If it wasn't, you would have solved it already. So You had to develop your physical body. It took you years and years and years to do that. You had to develop your intellectual body. It took years and years and years for you to do that. And we've ignored the spirituality. Well, now it's time to develop the spirituality. And you'll see that those three together bring you to the point of being a Superman or a Superwoman, where you have the great physicality, you have great intellectual, but you also have a great big heart. So, let me get back to what we're talking about, and it will come. Patience is the key here. So, those three things that we were just talking about were of the body. So we were talking about superior morality, morality of generosity, the morality of discipline, and the morality of patience. Okay? So what does morality mean? Morality has, it's a judgmental device. It's an intellectualization that we use to be able to evaluate what it is that we're doing. And patience is a huge part of that morality. So we have to think about these things. We have to use critical thinking. Look it up, meditate on it, contemplate it. So now, if I can, let me move to the next topic, which is training in superior thought. So this is of the intellect, the little mind, the little mind. And here we develop meditative concentration. And to get to meditative concentration, we have to have contemplative concentration. The point of being able to focus in on the book that we're reading, or the paper that we're reading, or the process of daydreaming, or the process of just thinking about something and seeing it through, and knowing that there's a what. What is it that you want to think about? What is it that you want to read? Why do you want to read it? Why do you want to know about it? And then there's a how do you approach it? So everything that we talk about, I've used this many, many times in 101, is there's the what, the why, and the how. Everything that we talk about has those three aspects to it. So this meditative concentration is part of that too, has those elements in it too. So it's the mental stabilization. In Sanskrit, or in Tibetan word, is called Gom, G-O-M. And it means, being able to focus the mind, being able to stabilize the mind, to protect the mind. And Gom, meditation, meditative concentration. The meditation, I suppose for most of us, the conventional word meditation in our Western society means, you sit down looking like a Buddha, you close your eyes, and maybe you go, and you try and get all the thoughts out of your mind. And good luck. Have you ever tried doing that? And can you do it for more than 5 seconds? So meditation comes. But meditation comes as a result of exhausting contemplation. We have to intellectually take things apart. We have to look at what the obstacles are. We have to look at what thoughts come up. And we have to deal with those thoughts, take them apart. And then we have to put them back together again. And sometimes we leave out some things. The things we leave out is the obsession. The thing that we leave out is the delusion. The thing that we leave out are the emotions. So we can have those things without those emotions, and now they're just pure thoughts. And okay, that's not going to bother me at all. And then I get on to the next thing. So now I can just rest. I can rest with that thought. That thought doesn't do anything to me. It doesn't cause me any agitation or anything like that. So now I can have a moment of pure meditation where there's no thought to interrupt me, to bother me. So if we do that process over and over again with all the myriad thoughts that come into our brains, then we're able to stabilize all of that. Now we can have a pure meditation that can last 5 minutes or 10 minutes or an hour. Now, it takes time to do that. It takes commitment to do that. It takes discipline to do that. But that's the job. That's how it's done. That's what it is to be able to recognize that spirituality, because it's the spiritual technique that is teaching us how to do that, how to recognize the emotions and not be threatened by them, how to be able to cut ourselves off from the emotions and not be threatened by that. And we say, oh, well, I have emotions about my family. I have emotions about my work and being a human being and so on like that. But how healthy are they for you? Has it become an obsession for us? And is it upsetting my balance? You know, that equanimity in life and so on. And if the answer is, it has upset myself in all these different ways and so on, then more work needs to be done to analyze it and to be able to understand it and to be able to neutralize it. I say neutralize it means it doesn't go away. We're not annihilating it, but we're neutralizing its negative connection or its negative tug onto us. And sometimes positive things can do that. Oh, I'm such a great meditator. I've got such pridefulness about my meditation. All you guys are going to learn about how I meditate and everything. And I go around thinking about that all the time. And that becomes as diabolically harmful as if I think, oh, I'm going to go around, I really want to harm everybody. And I find ways to harm them. So my ego will attach to any of that. What I'm trying to do is to neutralize that. I'm trying to neutralize the ego, my selfishness. It's still there. The potential is still there, but I'm in control of it instead of it controlling me. So these are big things. These are important things. And we're getting into subtle stuff because now we're getting into stuff of the mind. So this, the intellectual mind, we call that the little mind. That's the mind that's worried about all the mundane stuff and worried about our jobs and our families and our egos and our positions and all these things. There's a practicality to having to do that, but when does the practicality become the dominant thing, you know, of succeeding in a material world? Is there something else besides the material world? Is there a spiritual world? So how do we develop that? Yeah, somebody turn the microphone.
Oh, yeah, I had a question. This is extremely inspirational and extremely powerful. And I'm just learning. So as you mentioned, some of it might be, some of it's a little overwhelming because there's so much at once and I'm kind of absorbing. This is really a powerful experience. Is there a place for, and I would imagine there must be, for a passionate love of excellence and performance that's compatible with balance? It would seem that I think we talked about that a little bit earlier, but if someone wants to be great or wants to accomplish or excel in something, that doesn't necessarily have to be all ego or doesn't necessarily have to be, adversarial in any way. Where's the place for beautiful passion and desire to excel, not necessarily a distraction or lack of discipline, but a focused effort? How would that fit in?
Everywhere, and it's humility.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we turn on the TV, and in the course of a night, you know, looking at the news or over the week or something like that, you're going to meet all kinds of egocentric people and so on. And you know, some are just led around by that proverbial ring in their nose, but some of them are very humble. They have great power. They have great realization. They have great wisdom, great compassion, and they're humble with it.
I've noticed some of the most amazing mentors and people I admire who are so gifted and knowledgeable are often the most humble and compassionate. That's such a beautiful comment.
Yeah, so that's part of the that's part of the training.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question. So I was leading up to how do we develop this stabilization? So one of the ways, like we've said, is as having a practice place, but we all need to have the inspiration of a pure environment where we can see this working before we can bring it home. We bring it home, just out of our own invention of what we think it is, it's going to be contaminated in one way or another. But if we can go on retreat, if we can say, I'm taking the weekend off, I'm taking the week off, I'm going on retreat, I'm going to a place that is a spiritual place that I know supports this very important time, has all the facilities I need, including books and teachers and friends and so on, and food and everything. So I don't have to think about all the practical, mundane stuff. And all I have to do is just be there and be on retreat in a spiritual environment. So this is how one huge step in being able to develop meditative concentration. So while we're doing that, what we're doing is we're developing what we call single-pointed concentration. And that's the topic of this week's teaching that Kenshin Rinpoche is giving at the center. It's going to be on the single intention. The single intention is the translated title of the book that he's going to be explaining. And the Tibetan name is Gongchik, and it means the single intention. And what's it the single intention of? Liberation. Freedom. We all want to be free. We all want to be happy. So how do we do that? There's been many, 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 many books written about it. Many, many, many teachings have been given about it and everything. And this particular teacher has this book that is very precise, like a surgeon's scalpel. And we have to avail ourselves of that wisdom and be able to bring it in. Now, some of it's going to go flashing right over our heads. Some of it is going to be so simple that we'll take it for granted. But nevertheless, we have to dig in. We have to start someplace. So it's an auspicious time to begin. So single-pointed concentration. So that's what the process. So we go through the stages of meditation. That's going to be another feature of our next Buddhism 101 round, is going to be the stages of meditation, to intellectually analyze what they are, and then have the practices to be able to utilize them. But first, we have to know what we're doing. When you go to medical school, they're not just going to give you a scalpel and say, go to work. They're going to teach you all the different parts of the body, and they're going to teach you how to use the scalpel properly before they turn you loose to work on somebody. So meditation is the same thing. We got to learn all the aspects of what's involved and what the tools are, and to be able to manage all of that. So we're going to work on that. So there's clarity of the ultimate nature. What is our goal? Why are we meditating? Why are we here tonight? What's our goal? So I could ask you all, and everybody's going to tell me some variation on a theme of freedom. And that's the right view, that all beings want to be free. And what we're here to help is to be able to see that, and how it is that we block that up, how we obscure that freedom, and then by knowing that, like medicine, we're able to cure ourselves of those blockages to allow that freedom to just come shining through, because we have this true nature, which is like sunshine in our hearts, but it's blocked up. But as we begin to get rid of the obstacles, now the sunshine comes shining through. It's there already, but it's just obscured. Our doubts, our confusions, our mental misconceptions, our emotions, these are things that are the blockages that are blocking it up. So there's a clarity of the absolute nature, the clarity of what it is that we're looking for. Freedom. So when we talked about the Four Noble Truths, and we talked about the Eightfold Path, we talked about that there is this system that is here for us to follow that will lead us into that realization ourselves. And that's what we have to do. We all have to have the realization. You know, we can give you the tools, but until you are able to contemplate them to exhaustion and realize it's up to me. You come to the point you say, I can't blame it on anybody else. It's up to me. I got to stop. I got to stop being crazy. I got to stop being deluded. I got to stop being doubtful. The truth is here. It's very simple. Freedom is what we're here for. And anything that impinges on the freedom, I got to be able to neutralize. Not annihilate, neutralize. So it doesn't bother me anymore. So we're going to learn the tools of how to do that. So then there is, in this, when we reach the meditative mind, we talk about the clear light of mind. This is the little mind. This is the big mind. And when this catches up to this, then that's what we might call enlightenment. That's like the clear light of the mind. That we realize who we are as human beings. And we use this temple that we have, this temple of this body, speech, and mind, in order to be able to free ourselves from all the suffering that we cause ourselves. So this is all part of the meditative concentration, this mental stabilization, the stabilization of the inner of the little mind together with the big mind, and seeing it now as this the natural mind, the natural mind. This is the mind of bodhicitta, the holy enlightened mind, loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. That's bodhicitta. So that's the second of the three trainings. The first training was the body. The second training was of superior thought, of the mind. The body, speech. Speech is an agent of the mind. We communicate through our speech. We talk to ourselves, maybe not literally, but we think, hearing our own inner voice and so on, and we think through that speech and so on. So this perfection of being able to do that is this paramita that we're talking about, this perfection. The body we've already talked about. This was the mind. Now we're talking about this speech. So the body, the speech, and the mind. So now we come to the mind, which is the mind, which is the wisdom. The wisdom mind. What is this wisdom? How do we define that? What is that? Is anything that happens in the brain up here, is that wisdom? Of course not. It's full of all kinds of confusion and so on. And we act out so many things because we've thought it, and we wind up finding out that they were completely wrong. We made the wrong decisions. We didn't have the fully developed wisdom. Our motivation might have been right, but maybe we just didn't have the right tools to be able to know how to think it through. So this next one is called the training in superior wisdom awareness. Wisdom awareness. I didn't say wisdom. I said wisdom awareness. So what this means is that we have these thoughts, and we have to be able to analyze those thoughts to see where the essence of that truth is, where that essence of that wisdom is. And the awareness that we have that capacity within ourselves, but everything that we do is not necessarily going to give us a satisfactory result that we want. So we have to be aware of what wisdom is, how it develops, how it stabilizes, and how we use it, what, why, and how. So we talk about that there is a relative knowledge. There's a knowledge of phenomenal nature, of what we call nature, this nature around us, where human beings live, animals live, insects live, the trees live, the sky is, the sun is, the cosmos is. All this phenomenal nature, all this relative nature is all temporary. We're only going to last for so many years. This room is only going to last for so many years. That tree's only going to last for so many years. And we know the planets and the galaxies and everything, they've been up there for billions of years, but we know that they go through a life cycle too. They collide with each other, and new things come out of a result of that and everything. It's all temporary. And it's all phenomenal. Why is it phenomenal? Because we just don't know. Human beings don't have the capacity to know what it all is. It's phenomenal to us. It's amazing. It's phenomenal. I don't know how it got here. I don't know what it is now, and I don't know where it's going to go. I don't think anybody else does. So we call it phenomenal nature, and it's relative. It's relative against something else. We look at everything through an analysis of something else. Oh, well, it's not this, so it must be this. And all this stuff, you see, is all compounded. It's all made up of other stuff. So we can look at the macrocosm, we can look at all these planets, and we can look at the stars and the galaxies and everything, but then we can look inside of all that, and it all comes down to what? These atoms and subatomic particles, and then there's this energy that all this is within. And if we can split those atoms, split those particles, all this power comes out of it. All this energy is released. That's all phenomenal. We can do things to reproduce and create chain reactions and everything. We don't know what we're doing half the time. So all these things are appearances, collections of things that we have arbitrarily given names to, and we conventionally agree to call a tree, and to call a screen, and to call paper, and all these things, to call a body, a hand, and all these things that we've agreed to name all this stuff. And we, as a conscious being, can know these things. And so we become a knower of this phenomenal stuff. But it's just this phenomenal stuff. Is there something else that is beyond that? Something else that permeates everything else? We just don't recognize it. So that's the absolute, what we might call the absolute. And again, these are words, these are conceptual words that we're using to be able to have this kind of a discussion. And that's why we need to have agreement on the vocabulary that we use. So this absolute primordial innate wisdom, primordial, beyond or unborn, primordial, it's not even born. Once it becomes born, once it becomes physical, once it becomes intellectual, it loses its purity. It becomes contaminated with our thoughts, with our confusions. So this ultimate primordial innate wisdom, innate, that is within us, is within all things, to be able to see the essence of that, to recognize the essence of that, not with our eyes, but with our heart mind, to be able to have heart thoughts, not brain thoughts, heart thoughts. This ultimate reality. So this is where it gets into the realm of the metaphysical. This is where it gets into the realm of the spiritual. This is where it gets into the realm of the esoteric and all these different things and so on that we have names for. So, but we have to recognize the deceptive nature, the essence of the appearances, the relative, the deception of the relative in view of the absolute. The knowing mind of the relative that projects its ideas, its concepts onto what this space is. This is the perfection of transcendent wisdom. To be able to experience that. Because you can't see it, you can't weigh it, you can't hold it in your hand, it's invisible. It permeates everything. It's transcendent of everything that we know in the relative world. We experience it through the meditation as human beings. And we bring it back. As we have those meditative experiences, we bring it back. And we try and then bring the intellectual mind together with that spiritual mind to be able to make some sense of it. And what we do, it becomes transformative in that we begin to lead a more balanced, natural, calm life. Because our humility, our humbleness rises up in the face of all this confusion and say, I just don't know and I'm tired of trying to figure it out. I just want to be happy. Just give me some time. I want my time back. I want my peace back. You know, if you guys want to make all this confusion out of, living in the 21st century, that's what you're going to do. But that doesn't mean that I've got to do it. And I'm not looking at you guys and saying you guys that way. I'm just saying humankind in general. If they want to waste their time doing that, don't take me down with you. I can be happy sitting here in my room and just relaxing, playing music, reading, doing things that are wholesome. So this transcendent awareness, this wisdom awareness, we're not there, but we're aware that it is there. And that we are trying to bring it in, or we're trying to let it come out. It's already here. We're trying to recognize it and allow it to flower, to allow it to become our being, our essence of who we are. It's already our essence, but now we're getting rid of all the contamination. We're getting rid of all the disease is being cured. And we don't want to recontaminate ourselves. So that's the third the mind trainings. It was the mind training of the mind, the mind training of the body, the mind training of the speech, and the mind training of the wisdom. This wisdom mind, the speech mind, the body mind. Now, and we talked about that there were 6 things. So when we looked at this, I'm going to put this screen share back up because I got to make a point. All right. So we said generosity, moral ethics, patience. Those are the 3 of superior morality of the body. Then we said the meditative concentration and the wisdom, which were the second, which was the thought, which was the intellectualization, and here was the training of wisdom awareness, the mind training of wisdom awareness. So the 6th one I've left out right now is the perfection of effort, perseverance. Where is our perseverance? How do we develop that? So this is like if you will, a bracelet. A bracelet. And the bracelet has 5 beads on it. And the bracelet is a string, right? And it's got the 5 beads. And the 5 beads are the morality, the discipline, or the generosity, the discipline, the patience, the meditative concentration, and the wisdom awareness. Those are the 5 perfections. But those 5 beads, those 5 pearls, need to be strung on something to hold it together. And that's the perseverance. That's the effort. We can't have those 5 things if we don't have the perseverance. If we don't make the effort to understand, to be able to develop the experience with those things. That diligence is necessary for all these other things to be interconnected with each other. So it ultimately becomes like a holon. A holon is let's say there's these 6 spheres, these 6 balls, and we intersect them all together, and there's this one point in the center that there's a piece of each one of those 6 in the center. So what that makes up is called a holon. So a bracelet is an example of that in that way.
Lance, what word are you saying?
Holon.
How do you spell that? I'm just gonna write that down for myself.
HOLON.
Okay.
Like
Thanks.
holistic philosophy and doctors that practice holistic medicine. And,
Yes. Okay.
yes,
Thank you.
where you're putting everything together. You're seeing it all together as one thing.
Thank you.
Yes. So this perseverance, you see, supports the 3 trainings. We can't have the 3 trainings without the perseverance. So what is the perseverance of? What is it made of? It's made of listening or study. It's made of contemplation. Taking what it is that you've been given, that you've been reading, that you've been taught, and then contemplating it and taking it apart, putting it back together, see how it works and so on within your own life and looking at it. Well, when I was 5 years old, I thought of it this way. When I was 15 years old, I thought of it this way. When I was 25, I thought of it this way. Now I'm 55, I think of it this way. And looking at it in all these different permutations and so on, contemplating it. What's it going to be in the future? What did other people think about it? Contemplating all these things. And then meditation, resting the contemplation of its own accord through exhaustion. I can't think about it anymore. I've taken it apart, I put it back together again. I just got to leave it alone. I just got to relax. And then the meditation comes. All the blockages of the heart center, of like that sun that's in the heart of our heart center, all the blockages go away, and now all it's doing is just radiating light. It's illuminating everything around us. So that's the effort. To have the effort to do that. And that's the practice. You got to practice to do it. You can read about it, but until you actually do it and over again and stabilize it so that in a moment's time you can be there, or you're already there. To be in that kind of a mindset, to be free in your mind. Yes, I'm in this body. Yes, I'm in this crazy, confused world that's, any moment could blow itself up, or all these crazy things can happen. But at the same time, I'm free. At least as free as I can be. And we all can share in that. So this is the talk on the Six Paramitas, the Six Perfections, the Six Perfections of being a human being. And to be able to do this, one has to be a wholly enlightened being, or on the path to be a wholly enlightened being, a wholly enlightened human being. So we talked about the bodhisattva. The Bodhi means enlightenment. Sat is a being. Sattva is a holy being. So we put ourselves into this spiritual body along with our physical body and our intellectual body to experience this. So thank you very much for listening. Anybody got any comments? Questions?
I got a questions, teacher, regarding about the I learned about the chanting of the white terror, the prayers and stuff like that. And I've been doing that before bedtimes, but it seems like in my chanting the whole time, when I meditate, it seems like uh I don't know what it is. Kind of like a air going through my forehead, and then after that, when I get in a meditative form, my whole body gets really, really warm, kind of like that heartfelt warmness. And I'm not complaining or anything or whatever it is, because my mind seems empty now, and now it's kind of clear, right? It's kind of clear, and I haven't been, I'm just being calm the whole entire time. But I just wanted to ask, uh, is every time I do it, it seems like something that comes in my forehead. I don't know what to call that. So
Well, that's really great, and you're having, a very good experience with that. And you can see how it's affecting your body. It's affecting your intellect, I would guess. But how stable is it?
it's actually, I haven't, it's very it's calming. It's not
I understand, but
it's a positive, it's just
would you like to be like that all the time?
huh? I've been doing that. I've been meditating before, but I haven't. That's the only time that I started doing chanting and everything. I start learning, and I do it mostly every day before bedtime, going to bed. And lately it I don't know what happens, and something just clicked on my forehead, and it seems like something entered my forehead, and it seems like it's very clear. It's nothing. I don't know. It's kind of like right now it's really empty, and not no nothing going on, and my whole body has been really calm.
Well, good.
It's been
Enjoy it.
So that's what I have. So that's what
That's wonderful.
before. I've been meditating, but without any kind of stuff. I just close my eyes and I go to bed.
I understand. Well,
And
thank you for sharing that with us, and may that be an inspiration for all of us.
yeah, that's what happened within this, from before, when I first Sunday, and I've been doing like every day the chanting and
Well,
everything.
good.
But something happened, and
I
I don't know what to
rejoice.
call
I
it.
rejoice in your experience.
That's why I wanted to ask, teacher. So I just wanted to ask.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you. Yes, that's really good. And remain diligent with it. Anybody else have a comment? Question? Okay. Well, then this completes our Buddhism 101 8-week cycle with this. Next week, like I said, we're going to start again, and we'll engage with the 12 links of interdependent origination and start taking ourselves apart and putting it back together again. And so we have to see the component parts. And I'm not talking about fingers and sinews and tissues and things like that. I'm talking about some other things that you'll see. And then we'll be talking about the stages of meditation. Okay. So let's do our dedication. So we go to page 18, 19, 20 in your prayer book. Start with the lineage dedication prayer. So we recite in English. Dorje Chang, Talopa, Naropa, Marpa, Milarepa, Dharma-Loi-Gampopa, Pagma Drupa, and Lord Tri Kongpa, please bestow upon us the most auspicious blessing of all the Kagyu Lamas. By this virtue may I achieve the all-knowing state, and may all who travel in the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of samsara by defeating all enemies, confusion, the cause of suffering. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise, and where it is born, may it not decline and ever increase higher and higher. I pray that the Lama may have good health. I pray that the Lama may have long life. I pray that your Dharma activities spread far and wide. I pray that I may not be separated from you. As Manjushri, the warrior, realized the ultimate state, and as did Samantabhadra, I will follow in their path and fully dedicate all merit for all sentient beings. By the blessing of the Buddha who attained the 3 kayas, by the blessing of the truth of the unchanging Dharma as such, by the blessing of the indivisible Sangha order, may the merit I share bear fruit. By the virtues collected in the 3 times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate word of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. May the teachings of the great Trikumpa Ratna Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, Master of Interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious kind root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Yogins, Yoginis, and Dakinis, dwelling in the 10 directions, please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all sentient beings in samsara and nirvana, and the innate word of virtue, not result in the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth as a Shravaka or Pratyeka Buddha. May all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Maras and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit, by the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death. And may I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I in any case gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. Om Ah Hum. Om Ah Hum. Om Ah Hum. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of all sentient beings. Thank you all very much. It's been a lot to me to have you be with us for these past 8 weeks. And before that, thank you very much. It's been wonderful. It's a great experience to share these things with you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Lance.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so
Lance.
much. Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
time.
Thank you, teacher.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Okay, good night.
See you next Monday.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Tom, thank you.
Hey, no problem.
Thank you for everything. All right. I'll see you in a couple days.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Good night.
All right. Hi, Brendan.
Hey, Lance. Thanks for sticking around for a few
Sure.
minutes. I appreciate
Sure. You know what I need to do? Wait a minute. Yeah, so what did you want to talk about what I sent you?
it. Yeah, I did. You suggested there might be some edits to it we should make.
Well, it depends on your daughter. You know, if you read it to her the way it is, would that be offensive to her or confusing to her in any way?
I don't think it would be offensive to her. I think I've told her enough that I think that it would be fine. She wanted to be here tonight, but poor thing, she's so exhausted. I think she's already asleep. But
Oh, how old is
yeah, she is 16.
she? Okay. So so has this been an ongoing problem with her sleep?
She's a very anxious person. She has a lot of anxiety. And I think that recently, it's probably been going on about 3 or 4 nights now. She's been having this recurring nightmare of a school shooting. And this is something that is on everybody's mind these days,
I'll
especially.
bet.
Yeah. And she goes to the same high school as her sisters. And so this is something that it's a recurring dream of her sisters being involved in this or needing to get to them to help them. And what she does is she wakes up at 1 a.m. every morning. And then with this nightmare, it's the same thing. And then she just can't get back to sleep. And so I've read about certain individuals who are very far into their practice and they have dreams of all kinds of bodhisattvas and an amazing dream life that's very refreshing and powerful to them, even more than their waking life. And I'm certainly not anywhere near that, nor is she, but I thought that there may be some synergy there. There may be something involving getting into a meditative practice before bed that might help to relieve some of this. So that's why I came to you.
Well, I appreciate that. The fundamental meaning of this particular prayer is that we fabricate all these things in our mind, and our mind is temporary, and our body is temporary. And for an advanced practitioner, that's what we do all the time. And that's where I wondered if, with your daughter, if that might be a little, difficult for her to be able to understand. Would it be too abstract for her or too unsettling for her? But the primary thing is to be able to say, look, do you think she has any sense of reincarnation? You think she believes in any of that in any way?
I don't think she disbelieves in it. I think that she'd be willing to certainly entertain it as a possibility. I think she's there.
But so the point here would be that, we've been born many times and we've died many times. We have this life. And this life that we have, I'm sure is a good life. Your life and your daughter's life is a very good life and everything. But we don't know what karma there is, what karmic seeds there are lurking that haven't come up to fruition that we have to deal with and so on.
Yeah.
And when those kind of collective things happen, like the school shootings and everything, it makes you wonder, well, what did these kids do to deserve that? What did the parents do to deserve that and everything? And we just don't know, but yet there's this connection point between all this, and it's what we make. The connection point is what we've created for ourselves. And that is abstract for some people. And so the idea is to be able to say, well, look, our mind is always thinking about these things and always fabricating these things, and we just got to let it go, that it does these things, and we just got to be able to just relax and as it says in the prayer here, let me see here. It says, grant me the blessings to recognize dreams as dreams.
Mm-hmm.
The function of the brain is to think, and dreaming is is just thinking. And that in that stage at night, that those first few hours of sleep is just the brain thinking, going through its fears, going through the daily emotions, and so on.
Yes.
And then illusion is illusion. Dreams are dreams. Illusions as illusions. And illusions are daydreams, are things that we think are true, are just the things that we create for ourselves. Our delusions, our arrogance, and so on. And they're just as temporary as the dreams are. And confusion is confusion. That our minds are just full of confusion. It's part of being a human being. And that to see that the reality of all is the absolute nature of mind. So in other words, that everything that we see, everything we do, is just a fabrication of the mind. Now that's very abstract, but so whether that's going to be helpful to her or not, I don't know if that's going to raise more problems. But then the other thing was to do the breathing exercise that I said.
Yes.
The 4, 7, 8 breathing exercise. And, so that may be more helpful. I've been doing it lately, and it's great. I love it. It's great. And if I wake up in the middle of the night and don't fall right back to sleep, I use that, and I fall right back. I don't even know I fell back to sleep until I wake up the next morning.
Yeah, I'm going to pull those up again from your message, because if she could do the breathing exercises, even if she still has the nightmare sometimes, maybe at least she could fall back asleep, which would be helpful to
Well,
her.
just remind her that it's just the nightmare is just a basic movie that the mind is going through, the emotion of going through that trauma, and that
Yes.
it doesn't really exist. And to get into the metaphysical, to say, well, nothing exists and all this kind of stuff, and it's all fabricated by the mind, may be difficult for her to deal with right now. But that breathing exercise, so the way it works, you're laying there in bed, maybe on your back, on your side, either one, and you breathe in on the count of 4. So you're breathing in. 1, 2, 3, 4. You take a deep breath, and you'll hold the breath. And you'll hold the breath for now a count of 7. You're just holding the breath for a count of 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you exhale. You squeeze your abdomen. You squeeze your belly on a count of 8. And you're exhaling, you're exhausting all that air that's in your lungs out over those 8 seconds that you're counting.
Okay.
And you do that 3 times. And it's very relaxing. And if you really concentrate on it, and if she needs to do it 4 times or 5 times, that's fine. If she's still agitated, to do it more times is fine. But if you're really focused on it, it just relaxes you, it relaxes your body, it focuses your mind one pointedly on the breath, and is very effective.
Mm. Yeah, I've got that right here on the WhatsApp. I'll go over that with her as well, because I think that'll be helpful to her. Yeah, it's just, there's so much to be afraid of. But I mean, I said to her, I've had certain fears throughout most of my life, irrational fears, phobias perhaps, right? Like, going to prison is one of them. And, I'm not involved in anything shady, but,
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, a few years ago, in fact, remember the prayers on Saturday? One of them was the fear of snakes, the fear of imprisonment, which I
Right.
found interesting, to the Tara prayer. But I was out with my sons walking around the neighborhood about 3 years ago, and this guy comes around 80 miles an hour, making a left turn, and just going so fast, tunnel vision. We were almost one of these many pedestrian fatalities you hear about on the news. And I said to her, I couldn't see that coming. I had no idea that was coming for me. It almost killed me. But the things we worry about the most often are the things that don't really come true. But it's the stuff you don't see coming. That's why you just have to live in the moment, as you well know, and live for the day. So that's some advice I've been giving her as well.
And sometimes, when these dreams come up and they, so you make a plan. You say, well, what if somebody does come in? What am I going to do? What are they doing to protect us? Can we keep the door locked in our classroom, and only open it up for people that we know? Are
Yes.
there things that are practical things to subvert that kind of situation?
Yes.
To protect us from that kind of situation, being aware of those things.
Oh, yes. Thank you for that. Yes, that's a great point, because I said to her, we have a sworn police officer who's armed, who's right there in the school. And there is a security guard who's a former police officer who's also armed. And so I'm no fan of guns, but I want them to be protected. So
But do they keep the classroom doors locked? Is that something they do nowadays?
I think they do, yes, and they certainly can lock them in a lockdown situation. So,
Well, if they can, they should do it. It seems to me they ought to do it when all the kids come in. They should lock the door right away.
I think so too.
I mean, that's a very simple thing to do.
Yes, and so, yeah, I appreciate it. This is helpful, and I just want to get her into a more meditative state before she goes to bed, and I think this is going to help her.
Well, I think that breathing exercise might be the ticket, because anything else, is going to be predicated on more understanding and more, explanation practice that we've gone through and everything. So that may be more agitation for her. So the breathing exercise is really simple and very effective.
Okay, I'll be aware of that. And I said to her, look, this is unfortunately that this happens. This is part of samsara that we're all in, and unfortunately, that's
it's part of the craziness. And just hug her, love her, and let her know that that you're with her no matter what, I guess. And but lock the door. I think that's the most practical thing to do. That I think would help anybody relax. Just know that the door is locked.
Yeah, I think so too. Thank you, Lance.
All right. Thank you very much, Brendan. I really appreciate you being a part of our group, and I was really happy that you were with us over the weekend.
Me too. Thanks.
All right. I look forward to seeing you soon.
All right.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.